Hi everybody. Well, I've been looking at yesterday's video and I've realised that when I said I don't go abroad very often, I missed out Japan, because I did go to Japan. And today I'm going to try and fill in that blank by telling you what the trip was like going to Japan and the journey back. So let's start right at the beginning. I meet Jim Uzi at Manchester Airport. We fly to Heathrow. There we meet Judo Alays. We got on the big plane then, because we'd flown on a smaller plane to Heathrow, Jim and I. And it's a 707. Because in those days, they didn't have a 747. The 707 was the biggest plane. But that plane couldn't fly directly to Japan. And there was two ways you could go to Japan. You could go round the equator, which meant 3 stops, or sometimes 4 stops. Or you could go over the pole, and it meant 1 stop in Anchorage. We were going to fly over the pole. So we all got on the plane, we dropped into Anchorage for refuelling. That's why you drop into Anchorage, and to pick up other passengers. There, George Gordienko joined us. We were on the ground for probably a couple of hours or something like that. Flew out of Anchorage, drop into Japan. Well, on the way to Japan, we've got Jim and Alays, which are a pair of comedians, really. I'm a bit straight-laced at the time. You might say I still am, of course. But anyway, they tried to persuade me, in fact they do persuade me eventually, to get off this plane with the mask on. Because we are obviously not flying with the mask on. And Jim thinks it'll be a real wow for me to get off the plane and cause a stir at Tokyo Airport. Because, you know, masked men getting off a plane could be quite sort of dramatic, couldn't it? If you did it nowadays, you'd probably be surrounded by people with guns. Anyway, after a certain amount of argy-bargy, I decided I would do it. They sort of jollied me along. So we get to Tokyo, we fly into Tokyo Airport. As I've said in my book, they didn't have gantries like they do now. They put a big ladder, you know, a bit like Trump comes down off Air Force One. So they roll this thing out, we come down, I come down with the mask on. In those early days, those visits to Japan, the wrestlers were treated very much like high-level celebrities. I believe later on they were just treated like, you know, they were going there as wrestlers and they became second-class citizens. But that time, we were treated like celebrities. And when we got to the airport, we were met by a guy that was part of the TV company, and I believe he was also a senator in the Japanese government. He met us, and we were whizzed straight through to the VIP lounge. I've still got the mask on. Nobody said take it off. So he comes round and says hello to everybody. He says hello to me. Never said, who are you behind that mask? Just said hello. Collects everybody's passport, goes away with them, brings them back, gives them to us, and that's it. The next thing we know, we're out of the airport and in the taxi. So I've gone through Tokyo Airport in a mask, and the immigration had never seen my face. I could have been anybody underneath that mask. I don't suppose you get away with that nowadays. I think it might be a lot more difficult, but that's the way it was then. And we loaded into a limousine. We were taken straight to the hostel. And we were treated like that all the way through. Whenever we went on a wrestling show, we had our own car. And we had our own interpreter, went everywhere with us. He did. We called him Freddie. That wasn't his Japanese name, but that's what he was known as Freddie. And as soon as we left the hotel and went anywhere, he was there to interpret. Because, in Tokyo you're okay because a lot of people did speak English. But once you got out of the Tokyo area, no English, all Japanese. I would assume it's changed a lot since then. We are talking 1968 here. So we get there, and we don't go on the television straight away. We go off. We do what you might call a spot show, or a couple of spot shows. And I'd got a camera at the time, so I think Ray Hunter came along as well, but Ray Hunter flew in from Australia, so he didn't fly with us, but he was on the same tour. And I'm pretty sure that he took this video that I'm going to show you, where I'm in the ring with a couple of Japanese lads. I think it was a 3-man tag, to be honest, 3 on either side. There was Jim, myself, and I'm pretty sure it was George on our side, Vodienko. Jim sort of tutored me a little bit and said, don't let these Japanese lads get the better of us, be a bit sort of... And Billy Robinson had also given me the gypsies warning not to give too much to him because he was coming back and he wanted to be the daddy, really, didn't he? He wanted to get a coaching job out there. So he wanted to sort of keep that idea that Wigan wrestlers were the bees and E's, because these people knew that I'd been to Wigan. They also knew I was Kendo Nagasaki, but they wouldn't call me Kendo Nagasaki. I found out I was Mr. Guillotine. I didn't like that very much. I resisted that, but it was on the posters. And Freddie actually said that the Japanese fans knew I wasn't Mr. Guillotine because they'd had the English wrestling magazine. So they'd seen this masked wrestler with the same outfit on called Kendo Nagasaki. But for some odd reason, they didn't want to call me Kendo Nagasaki. They decided Kendo Nagasaki was going to be Mr. Guillotine. I think that was a bit of a stumbling block for them, really, because it caused them quite a bit of trouble, really. I didn't like it. I think the fans were a bit suspicious. Anyway, to pick up the story, we go on this spot show, and Jim's told me, be a bit of a tough guy, let these lads know that we're not a pushover, because Jim wasn't the sort of guy that would argy-bargy with them. They'd find George a bit more trouble, but I was a bit more sort of cavalier in those days. So I'm in the ring, and I'm supposed to take a fall, so I think I cross-butted this guy, put him up on my shoulders. In those days, I was still doing the aeroplane spin. It's pre-kamikaze crash, you see, isn't it? I'm still doing the aeroplane spin. So I get this man up on my shoulders and spinning him round, and Jim screams out, "That's the wrong man, that's the promoter!" And now he's tutored me to be a bit hard, you see. So I chuck this guy off, let him go, and I don't pin him. Then I have to go back and get the right guy. So round and round I go again, and then eventually I do pin him. 1, 2, 3. When I get back, Jim said, "Oh, you know which is the fucking promoter?" I said, "Won't you fuck off, Ozzy?" So he and I argued on the apron. But you don't actually see the argument. Ozzy and I were having a bit of an argy-bargy because I felt he'd sort of led me up the garden path. He'd only got me wearing a mask coming into the territory. And him and Allays really were comedians all the way through. I mean, I've got footage when they're messing about on a railway, on the Bullet, when we were on the Bullet train. And they sort of got me to join in a bit of silliness there as well. I don't know, I suppose, I was young and quite sort of, they could manipulate me. Allays in particular, you see. Allays had worked with me quite a lot in the UK before he went out there. Now, Al's not a brave man, judo Allays. I don't really ever did any judo. But Al had a very sort of, a sort of public schoolboy accent. And he always used to use "oh boy" and things like that. Now, what he used to do in the job in the UK, Wayne Bridges used to sort of act as his valet, would you believe? In the wrestling room, Allays would be ordering him about and say, "Come on, Bridges, bring that bag over here now." And all the wrestlers used to get a bit annoyed about the idea because he used to do it, didn't he? And Allays used to play up to this sort of image of being an English gent because he had the right accent. He actually was a local MP, not an MP, I think he was a councillor for Westminster at one stage. So, and he spoke about 3 languages as well. He was very fluent in French, both spoke it and wrote it. So he wasn't anybody's fool in that way, Al. And he, as far as that type of thing was concerned, he came over really well. So we had our time in Tokyo, and the time comes for us to go back. Now, Jim Uzi, when Peter Mavia was over in the UK, Jim had the job of putting these foreign guys over. like he did with me in '64. And he got very friendly with Peter Mavia. That's the Rock's grandfather, of course, Peter Mavia. So Jim's got in touch with Peter because we've decided we're not going to go back over the pole. We're going to go the long way round. Now, we did have the option at the time. We could have gone to Mexico to the Olympic Games because the Olympic Games were at the same time. As we were coming back, the Olympic Games were just starting. So we could have gone to the Olympic Games. I would have liked to have done that because I'm very much, but the other two weren't bothered. They weren't really, apart from the wrestling they did, they weren't sporting people. They played darts or something like that if they were lucky. But they decided they wanted to come the other way around. So that meant coming from Tokyo into Honolulu, where Peter Mavia, friend of Jim's, we were met at the airport and taken downtown Honolulu, where Peter had already arranged for us to stay in an apartment overlooking Waikiki Beach. You could have came out of the front door straight onto Waikiki Beach. Fabulous apartment. I mean, I can't remember whether we paid for it or not. I mean, I have a funny feeling it was all on the house. And during this period, I got to know Peter's daughter extremely well. I mean, you could say it was a bit of a sort of holiday romance, I suppose. Atta Mavia. We went everywhere. We spent a lot of time together and, really, really got on like a house on fire. I presume she liked me and I reciprocated. We did get on really well. When I came to leave, she came to the airport with me and she gave me what you call a lei. The one she gave me was made of shells. It goes around your neck. And the idea is if you give somebody, this is what she told me, if you give somebody a lei, that means you're going to come back. You're going to come back to Hawaii. That's how she presented this idea for this particular gift that she gave me as I left. We hugged and kissed and said goodbye. There was something in me that said I probably would go back, but I never did. So I suppose, if I'd have gone back, maybe there wouldn't have been a Little Rock. Who knows? We're not going to find out about that, are we? Anyway, we get on the plane, say goodbye to Hawaii, and we go to San Francisco. Now, just to sort of recap a little bit, when we left Tokyo and I think it was the southern island had a typhoon about 2 or 3 weeks before we left, and there was still quite a lot of turbulence in the air. Now, LA's is not a good flyer. And when we got in the air coming out of Tokyo, this plane started to bounce around. Before we got to Honolulu, this plane started to bounce around. You could actually see the rack whipping like that as the plane was going through this terrible turbulence, which was the aftermath of this typhoon. They call them typhoons in the southern hemisphere, hurricanes in the northern hemisphere. So when we drop into Honolulu, of course, having gone through this terrible thing, and when we come out of Honolulu, Al's really sort of uptight about getting on the plane again. So he decides he'll have a good drink before he gets on. So he had a good drink. Then he had another good drink. Then he had another good drink. And then as we got to San Francisco, we're going to San Francisco, got to stop and refuel again. So we come into San Francisco and we're going to stay there about 4 days in San Francisco. So we drop into San Francisco, and as we go into the lounge at San Francisco, I looked at Tal and I said, "Where's your bloody teeth?" He said, "Oh," because he was still got an hangover. He'd come off the plane semi-sober, didn't realise he'd lost his teeth, so his teeth had ended up in the loo because he'd been sick. So the teeth had ended up halfway between Hawaii and San Francisco in the Pacific. And he blamed me, said, "Why didn't I look after his teeth?" I said, "I have nothing to do with your bloody teeth. You didn't give them to me." So we get into the airport. This is at San Francisco. And we're booking the tickets out. You have to go to the reception desk at San Francisco. It's the first time I ever heard the jet called a fan jet. And the announcer, they said, fan jet so-and-so was going to fly to so-and-so. I thought that was unusual because they didn't call them a fan jet in Heathrow or in Tokyo, but that's the first time I heard it. And we're booking these tickets and Al's doing all the talking. And this young lady behind the counter, she looks at him like that, all sort of starry eyes, and then she shouts to other people in the office, "Hey, you guys, come listen to this guy." She said, say it again. And I'll give him, now Alan suddenly realises it's the accent they're interested in. And he puts it on, doesn't he? This country gent sort of, a bit like Downton Abbey, that type of thing. And he could do it really well. And they were absolutely fascinated listening to him. Jim and I were a bit more common. They knew we were British, but we didn't have that accent. I think they thought we were his servants. And he really laid it on. Anyway, we went and stayed in San Francisco for a few days, got the plane, came out, went to New York, stayed there for a while. I think it was only about 3 days in New York. We stayed in New York. I've got some footage of that when Al and I are on Broadway and Jack Dempsey's bar, the boxer Jack Dempsey. And then we came back to Heathrow. Al went back to London because he lived in London. Jim and I got an internal flight, went to Manchester, where Jim's lad, Mark Rocco, picked Jim up. And that was the first time I ever met Mark, when he picked his father up. And Jim said then that Mark was coming in the job. I think he was 16. So, sort of putting the story a bit further forward, Al Hayes really realised that this accent was the key to America. Because within about probably less than 6 months, he'd gone back and he never came back again. And we all know he became Lord Alfred Hayes out there. The accent worked. And he worked for Vince and he got on, he did some wrestling out there and then eventually he became one of the announcers, didn't he? Lord Alfred Hayes. I think our friend Darren tried to follow through with that later on. Perhaps he learned it from Al, I don't know. It could be the case. So that really fills in the blanks for me going away, and I really missed that trip out. So I thought today I'd fill that in for you. So as you know, I did go, and I never went back. I could have gone back, but I didn't want to go back to be Mr. Guillotine, and they didn't want Kendo Nagasaki, so I never went back. I don't think I wanted to go back. I was, as I said before, it's always a lot of trouble being in a mask in a foreign country. It's much more convenient here when you can, go in your own fireside late at night if you want to, and get in your own bed. A lot better. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. So once again, I'll say cheerio.